States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting is brought to you by our good sponsors, Ruggles Farms. Thank you very much for the cider. Little commercial plug there, Mr. Ruggles. Okay, all right.
Feels like you're shorter.
I am short.
Roll call,
Shrinking
please.
in my old age.
Trustee Powell,
Here.
trustee Voorhees,
Present.
trustee Smith,
Here.
trustee Ruggles,
Here.
treasurer Roman.
Here.
Clerk Noble here, supervisor Kowal.
Here. Make a motion, I'm looking for a motion to approve, for the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion
Supervisor
approved by Mr. Noble, looking for support. Support. I have support from Mr. Powell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Item number 5, public comment. Public comment is for individuals for items that are not on the agenda. If your item is on the agenda, it has been this board's approach to discuss those items at that time, at that conjecture. So anyone at this time that has something they'd like to speak about? Yes, sir. Come up, identify yourself for the recorder. Name and address, please.
Hi, Steve Woodard from 953 Schuyler, right over here in Lakewood Village. So tonight, I want to give kudos to the White Lake Township Police Department. So at Lakewood Village, we've had a speeding problem, and it's been going on for quite some time. We've called numerous times, and they've done many radar trailer deployments. I finally sat down with Lieutenant Way, and we coordinated, and now he's sharing radar trailer data with me, and I've been doing some analysis on it, figure out what the right times are to do focus patrols. And so I've got the first set of results from that over the last couple of months, and we made a significant improvement in the compliance, which is one of the numbers they have on the radar trailer data. And we've improved compliance from 70% down up to 77%. So we made a 7% difference in a couple of months with deploying focus patrols, and we're going to continue that. And he's going to keep sharing data with me, and I'm going to keep analyzing it, and we're going to keep the thumb on it. But I just want to give a shout out to Lieutenant Way and Sergeant Wagenmaker and Sergeant Gondek, and obviously Chief for having a bunch of good guys on the team. And it's been a pleasure working with those guys, and I look forward to continuing it and making even better improvements in the neighborhood. So thanks to White Lake Township Police.
Very good. Thanks for the compliments.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anyone else at this time? At this time, we'll take this gentleman over here. Identify yourself.
Thank you. Charles Shop, 417 Rosario. Thank you, trustees and chairman. In the past, I've heard at least one trustee say in these meetings that whatever is proposed for safety is something that should be voted for and should be approved. However, based according to the state and U.S. Constitution, which we're sworn to support, safety is not the most important thing to support. Personal freedom and liberty is. So if we can keep our votes and approvals with first and foremost, privacy, individual freedom for the individual, that is great. Secondly, for safety. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Sit down. Anyone else in the public? Okay, all right. He's not the public. Okay. This time I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Hoffman, our county commissioner, and he has a little quickie comment that he'd like to make.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you for your public service. And yes, I am the Oakland County Commissioner for District 7, and it's an honor and privilege to have the north part of White Lake Township as my district. I've titled this, Don't Be Fooled. Everything in life is about percentages. When inflation increases to 10% or more, we are all concerned about paying more for everything from food to fuel. When mortgage interest rates go above 7%, we worry about being able to purchase a home. Recently, the Oakland County Board of Commissioners voted to put a ballot proposal on the November 5th ballot to raise the Parks and Recreation millage by 85%. Yes, you heard me right. They want an 85% increase. The current millage does not expire until 2029. But if the millage passes on November 5th, 2024, it will replace the current millage and it will be for 20 years instead of the current 10-year millage. This new millage will raise $24 million the first year. And I say the first year because under Proposal A, our property taxes go up every year based on the rate of inflation or 5%, whatever is lower. This $24 million is on top of the $28 million in property taxes we already pay to support the parks. The county tells us that the average homeowner will only pay an additional $40 more the first year. Don't forget the effects of Proposal A. There are over 30,000 acres of farmland in Oakland County. There's industrial, commercial, and apartments. These properties will pay the majority of the 85% increase. And we all know these property taxes will be passed on in higher cost and rents. I constantly hear from fellow commissioners how difficult it is to purchase a home, and the government should create a program to assist home buyers. This is a common problem. The government causes a problem, and then they want to create a program to use more taxpayer money to fix a problem they created. I've always supported the parks, but enough is enough, and I will be voting no on this 85% increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Appreciate that. Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, closing the public comment, moving on to consent agenda. Looking for a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And the consent agenda has a motion to approve by Mr. Powell. Looking for support? Support from Trustee Smith. All in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Item 7A and B, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of September 10th, 2024, and the regular board meeting of September 17th, 2024. Any questions or comments or corrections from the board?
Mr. Supervisor, I tried very hard to find something, looked at every comma, I could not find anything wrong with the minutes. Therefore, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of September 10th and the regular board meetings of September 17th, 2024 as presented.
I'll support
Very
that.
good. I have a motion and support by Trustee Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Moving on to public hearings. The next three items are public hearings, and that is for the public to comment on particular items that we are going to put forth. The first hearing is the public hearing and comments regarding the approving the Community Development Block Grant CDBG application program year 2025. I will make that in the form of a motion to open. Looking for support.
Support that.
I have support from Clerk Noble. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Colwell,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
At this time, we are in public comment for the CBD Community Development Block Grant application program for the year 2025. Any persons that have an interest at this time to make a comment on these programming, please come up and identify yourself to the podium.
Can you summarize that for them, Mr. Supervisor?
Certainly will, but we will also be getting around to that in a resolution.
Well, I meant for their public comment, they might have.
The Community Development Block Grant is a program of which monies are utilized through federal dollars and such and through the county for programs that are to an advantageous to the township to have to help support people that might need a little extra help. In other words, we have Meals on Wheels is one of the programs that we like to support. And the other program that the township has a history of supporting is the minor home repair program. Those are examples of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, correct, and they're Haven and things that near. There are a multitude of programs, although that's another story. Okay, we are now in public comment. Anyone at this time care to comment on it? Seeing none, I make a motion.
We have one.
Oh,
Sorry, Mr.
please,
Supervisor.
no problem.
Charles Shop 417 Rosario Lane. Question would be, because the Oakland County tax was forced upon us for transportation through the county, Democrat controlled, and they forced that upon us without the opportunity for our township to opt out. I've heard that before we only had or used a few $100,000 for the WOTA transportation, but now we're getting much more funds or availability for those transportation expenses. So is that extra money pushed to our township when we can use that maybe for community development block grants? Or do we only get to charge the county those funds or those services which we use for transportation? Just curious if there's a cross connect of the funds.
Unfortunately, this is strictly for comment only. If you'd like to have some dialogue, I'd be happy to talk to you. Please call my office.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, I'm making a motion to close the public comment regarding approving the Community Development Block Grant CDBG application program year 2025. That is in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Next item, public hearing to hear the comment regarding the issuance of bonds by the Arizona Industrial Development Authority for of several series of its revenue notes, bonds, or other obligations. To all of you that may meet a mumble jumble, I will explain to you that the Independence Village, which is a independent corporation that has subsidies by the government for a variety of services for the elderly and care, is a national company, is selling bonds, and this is a process of which we, the township, are obliged by rules and regulations to have a public hearing on if anybody has any comment. I am now opening the public hearing for the issuance of bonds by Arizona Industrial Development Authority and several series of its revenue notes, bonds, or obligation. Make that in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. Roll call vote.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
We are now in the public comment regarding the issuance of bonds by the Arizona Industrial Development Authority as such. Any public comment at this time?
Charles Schott, 417 Rosario Lane. Without asking a question, my comment would be if this raises my taxes, I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comment? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the hearing to public comment regarding the issuance of bonds by the Arizona Industrial Development Authority of several series of its revenue notes, bonds, or other obligations. Looking for support. I have support from Mr. Roman. All in favor? Aye. We are closed. Next item, to hear comments regarding the confirmation of the special assessment role for the Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement Special Assessment District 2024-2028. That is in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Noble. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Anyone at this time that has a comment to hear regarding the confirmation of the special assessment role for the Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement Special Assessment District 2024 through 2028 at this time may come forward and speak. You have to identify yourself for the recorder.
Sheila Picard, 8619 Cooley Beach Drive.
You'll have to go to the microphone because they will not hear you.
I can only get it from here. Sheila Picard, 8619 Cooley Beach Drive, 34-year resident there. I have a couple concerns about the lake weed control. A year ago, they had, I believe, an aquatic biologist come through and found that we had proper lake weeds. The right weeds, the proper level of weeds. But now someone has brought in a company that stands to profit from this control as the knowledge of, the body of knowledge, which I don't agree with. It should be they should not have any commitment to it. The other concern of that is when we kill the lake weeds, the 4-foot carp that are invading that lake will kill all the other fish and stuff that is in that lake. The fish, the carp are this big. So they won't have any place to hide once all the weeds are gone. So that's my concern. Okay?
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Please come forward.
Renee Marino, I'm 8916 Cooley Lake Road. So I am the person that ran the petition, and that's not a true comment.
Give your address for the recording.
8916 Cooley Lake Road?
Okay.
Yeah. No one's profiting from it. We actually had done weed control in the past, and this company is cheaper than what we had used before. We addressed in the public meetings with everyone that lived on the lake about the fish and whether or not they were going to be killed. And it was discussed that because our weeds are so bad right now that the fish cannot nest on the bottom of the lake. So therefore, we're depleting our fish population by the amount of weeds that we have currently. You cannot take your boat out without having to clean off your prop every single time. So this is our third attempt at passing this, and it passed with flying colors on the signatures from everyone on the lake because the weeds have gotten to the point where everyone just signed. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the hearing regarding confirmation of special assessment role for the Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement Special Assessment District 24-28. That is in the form of a motion. Looking for support. I have motion support from Mr. Powell. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. 9A, request to approve Second Amendment of Plan Development Agreement preserves a hidden lake. Mr. O'Neill.
Hi. Okay, so this is going to be a little confusing because this is not something that was in your packet. I've got, actually, Andrea, if you could pass these down. Basically, the applicant is asking for permission for Lot 43, or at least tonight, what's ready for your consideration is not what's in the packet. What's in the packet is something that has not gone to the Planning Commission yet, and it's to you, I think, maybe last minute, but a little out of order. It has not been completely reviewed and vetted by the attorney yet, and it has not gone to the Planning Commission yet. But what's more urgent is the desire of the applicant to get approval for what you see here and what I can put on the screen in a minute, which is an encroachment on the corner of a deck on Lot 43. The amendment that they're wishing to have approved by the Township Board after it goes through the appropriate process would be to allow for an extension for homes on lots 43 and 44, an extension of the envelope for a deck to allow a bigger home and a larger deck to go off the back of the house. And at this point, there is a house that's been built with a deck in the corner does encroach into the area that was supposed to be addressed by the development agreement amendment that hasn't come through the process yet. I'll put it up on the screen. So it's basically this small corner here that's triangular in shape. This is what they originally asked for when they made application back in March. This is what was the approved plot plan, and you can see that corner being shaved off, which would match the last page in your packet, which would have kind of shaved that corner off, of the deck. And this is what's been as-built. This kind of came in on a little bit of an angle. The third page is what's been as-built, which is the deck being built the way it was originally proposed as opposed to the way it was approved that squares the deck off. So in order for them to get a C of O, this issue has to be dealt with. So they're requesting that the Township Board approve, again, and it's in a backwards way because this should have been approved through a development agreement as opposed to through your action tonight. Because the option you have tonight is to approve it and then have it be memorialized in an amendment to the development agreement that's not really before you tonight because it's not ready. Certainly, it's up to you. I don't have any objection. It just came to you in a way that it doesn't normally come to you. And this would then allow us to grant a certificate of occupancy. I don't know, hopefully that is clear.
Can I ask you a question?
Oops, I'm sorry.
Flat out, is a community development an objection to this or just an objection to the process?
We're not an objection to it. This is not the way it should have gone.
Correct.
This is sort of like the cart before the horse. We don't object to it. I just can't approve it. So this is going to come to my desk and ask for my signature on a C of O. It's going to come to the building official's desk, and I can't sign off on it because the development agreement doesn't allow me to. So it has to be approved by you. Generally speaking, the development agreement gets approved, and then someone builds in concert with that. In this case, that hasn't happened. So I do think if you do decide to move ahead with this, my recommendation would be to then allow, through your action, us to issue a C of O as long as this is memorialized in a development, an amendment to the development agreement. I don't know if you want some sort of consideration to be held to make sure that this happens, because we still need all the documentation to support this happening, to go through the proper vetting and be approved by, I think the engineer is okay with it. That's the letter that ended up in your packet. I think it only went to Lisa's office in the current, the current red line form, I think on 10/10. So 5 days ago, I think Lisa got something. So her office hasn't even, I don't believe, reviewed the latest and greatest. It's not due back to us for probably another week or so. So again, I'm not uncomfortable with what they're asking for. It's just not in a form that it normally would come to you. If that makes sense.
Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Is this the lot next to the gazebo?
Yes, it is. You can see actually on the screen, the gazebo lot is right here. They intend to ask for lot 44 on the other side of that lot to have a similar extension.
I was gonna say, their same problem is gonna come up again, because the lot next to the gazebo is like pie-shaped or odd-shaped,
Yeah.
and their deck is gonna be encroaching too, right?
Well, there is an allowance for encroachment of a deck for some of the lots. If you remember back a number of months ago, maybe a year and a half ago, you created an amendment or approved an amendment that allowed for certain lots to have certain kinds of encroachments. The developer had mentioned that he had intended to ask for 43 and 44 to be included on that list, but did not at the time. And he's coming back to say, I want to add 43 and 44 to the list. That's fine. It goes through a process to the PC and to you guys. It just hasn't gotten there yet. So, we're sort of halfway through the door here because we're dealing with 43, but 44 is still hanging out there. So not to further complicate this, but if your wishes are tonight to take care of the request and approve what they're asking for on 43, and you don't care if they do it on 44, which again is not in front of you in the normal form, it may be just easier to say the similar language with the previous lots that were already approved with this encroachment allowance, just to simply add lots 43 and 44 to that list with all the other documents that, is that what you were gonna?
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Ruggles?
Oh, I thought you were gonna ask something,
Okay,
but
no,
I don't know if
that's
you
all
wanna
right.
try to take care of everything.
I kind of get the gist of where you're going.
I just don't-
I think everybody does.
If it's the exact same issue, I think we should, because as
Yeah.
far as I know, that the lot, if it's facing the water and the gazebo's on the right, that's 44, right?
So what you're facing, right, so if you look at the screen, it's not shown here.
Yeah,
This is 43, here's a gazebo, an open lot, and 44 is over here.
okay, yep, thank you.
There's other language that's being proposed to be amended that just hasn't come through the process, and I don't have everything in front of me. It's actually in your packet, but I'm uncomfortable with saying you should approve that language because it hasn't gone through the process yet. But I don't, if your intention is to allow 43 and 44 to be on that same list, to be treated in the same way as the other lots, we might be able to deal with that on the back end if you were to take action on that question tonight.
Mr. Ruggles?
So, what exactly is over the line? Just a small deck overhang?
Yes, it's a small triangular piece, and the dimension of it is about, it's a 12-foot wide, it's right here, actually, if you look. It's this,
just that
it's
corner.
basically this triangular piece
Piece
was
wedge.
not supposed to be there, and it is. So it's a fairly, I can't see the dimension well on the scan. I don't know if it's better on.
Fairly benign.
Yeah, it's not
It's
very big.
about 12 feet, 12 feet here, probably less than 10 feet here, and maybe 7.5 feet here.
Okay. I really
7
don't, I don't have an issue with this item myself, so.
And just to be, there's a patio below it, so there's nothing wrong with there being, the patio's fine. It's that the deck has a different setback requirement because it's off the ground and is a projection. That's why.
Any comment? I'd like to make a motion unless there's.
I have
Mr. Powell.
two questions, and I don't know if Sean can answer it or the applicant can. If the board remembers, this is happening because the water elevation of that pond fluctuates a great deal. And I don't know what provisions have been as-built to make sure that that lake, if it comes up another foot, now we're gonna have even more decks, and this deck not in compliance anymore also. So each year, that water could encroach up closer to the decks, and I don't know how that's been taken care of. And then I didn't know what this board might suggest to put in place to entice the developer to complete the process properly. If we give the developer everything that they want now, what will prompt them to keep the process moving to close out the issues?
Well, they have the right to come back and appeal to the board, as they are doing now, or any other lot that may have particular extenuating circumstances, because there are some peculiarities in the shapes of these parcels. There doesn't appear to be any objection from community development, and I think the board can render a decision based on that information. I understand and appreciate what you're saying. I believe the developer needs to be more cognizant of it. And when you submit a plan that has a particular elevation on it, build it that way. Don't get creative, okay? So, because it's a little tough going backwards, and when people question stuff like that, it puts egg on your face and then turn ours. But this is a benign request. I don't think there's an issue. That particular lot, 42 and 43 and 44, as others, are going to have some peculiarities around there. I think it's just due to the nature of the configuration design of the development. As far as elevation goes, there's quite a bit of grade difference, I think, between the lake level and the top of those stairs. I see at least a 5-foot apparent elevation change from 947 to 942.3, so 5 feet.
Yeah.
Ish.
And I've seen that as well. Sean, is this an ordinance compliance issue of setback to the natural features in our, as defined in our ordinance? Is that what they're butting up against?
Well, there's that, and there's the setback. Because there's a PD, this was sort of dealt with when the PD was approved. When the elevation of the lake came up, which is their detention pond also, it affected, that water level as it fluctuates affects where we measure the setback from. So instead of calling the ordinary high water mark that point where we would generally by ordinance measure the setback, instead it was the 1-foot freeboard elevation. And that's what we pegged it to, thinking that there would be a greater likelihood that that wouldn't necessarily be as much of a moving target as the ordinary high water mark as it ebbed and flowed. And so that's really kind of where we're at with this. And so this is not consistent with the zoning ordinance, which is not uncommon for a PD, because PDs have the ability to be flexible. And so while it's not consistent with the ordinance, it is consistent with what was approved. They are allowed to encroach closer. These units are simply allowing for an additional amount of encroachment as was previously approved by a handful of other lots. I don't know, maybe there were 8 lots. I forget the exact number. Around the lake, there were other lots that had similar desire to maybe have the decks. And I think that was a bigger issue, was the deck was allowed to encroach out into that area as opposed to the home. The home meets the setbacks. It's the deck that's in some of the units allowed to go further out. And the board felt that that was reasonable because someone obviously building a home wants to have the ability to use a deck as well.
So instead of this being an ongoing problem and enforcement and evaluating and a property owner, a resident living there saying now it's within 20 feet of my deck instead of 25 feet of my deck year after year, why maybe did community development not say, let's just eliminate that requirement as part of this PD?
The requirement for there to be a setback?
Correct.
Well, I think we needed to have some measuring stick. We had to have some standard to apply, though we understood that what the board gave them permission to do created some more flexibility. There had to be some minimum. But at the same time, we understand that if there's a really wet spring, let's say, and the water level comes up even higher than the 1-foot freeboard elevation, it may shrink. It may ebb and flow still yet. And what is supposed to be 25 feet may in some seasons be 22 feet or 20 feet. That's fine, as long as we've got an as-built drawing showing the deck was built beyond that freeboard elevation. That's our marker. That's our landmark, let's say. So the actual level of the water could end up being closer to or further away from in some seasons or some years, but that's not going to cause them to be in violation as a result of a water level that they can't control. It was just really a point for us to be able to say, okay, here is the elevation from which we will draw the setback lines. And I think that's at 942.3 is that 1 foot freeboard elevation. So that's what we use as opposed to a distance from an ordinary high water mark. We're using a distance from an actual elevation. Does that make sense?
It does, didn't answer my question because it doesn't solve the problem of it. It's a line in the sand with no teeth to deal with it when it's broken, when it exceeds it.
So
So
when it's, I guess when it's broken in what way?
the water rises 2 feet. Now it's only 10 feet from the deck.
Sure.
And now what does the board do? Say, oh, move the people out of the house. No, that's not going to happen.
That's right.
The deck's not going to be cut off again.
Right. That is no different than any lakefront lot that may experience because we're going to use the ordinary high water mark, and that is a very vague, from year to year, that is a different number, that the setback from an ordinary high water mark. So it's no different than that. So when you're approved, when you get approval, we have to stop the clock ticking. We have to say, well, here's the ordinary high water mark, here's the distance. So once they comply, they're not in violation. They built it where we approved them to build it, and Mother Nature will do what Mother Nature does. And they won't be in violation because it's been a rainy spring and it's 5 feet closer to their deck. You know what I mean? And so
it's a timing issue and closing out the project that is allowing this to come before the board each time. Once it's set and done and CVOs are issued, it will not be back before this board.
not for any approvals for setbacks, right, certainly not. And I think and you kind of hit the nail on the head, we've got to inject some common sense into approaching this because some lakes are level controlled and it's pretty static and others are not. And so we have to just be reasonable. So again, when we establish an ordinary high water mark, we go out halfway through a build and find out that the water level's up. We don't say, well, you've got to dig your basement out. That's where we agreed it was. They built it in the right spot. We don't have control over everything, and so we apply then some common sense in that case and just say, all right, you're where you're supposed to be, the lake levels come up. It's just, something that.
So what is the downside of issuing a blanket statement now for every lot remaining around this lake to where we never have to have this come back before us again?
Well, I guess I can't say it will never come back before you because I don't know what the future will hold or and once the developer's done building, there are going to be homeowners that have the ability to come back as an association and request amendments to the development agreement. An individual can't come and seek, say, a variance. It's got to be an HOA request when they take control of an amendment to the development agreement. So I guess I don't have like a panacea or a silver bullet for this, but I think that changing these lots are the only two things that the developer is asking us to do. And so loosening the restrictions for further lots is not something that he's asking for. He's just asking to add these two to the list of lots already. So I think he feels comfortable that he can do what he needs to do with what he's asking for on lots 43 tonight and 44 as well, which I had mentioned. So I guess I can't say that something else won't come up, but I don't think we should do away with
Mr. Roman.
Yeah, so if we pass this second amendment, does that actually take care of you? That will allow you to issue a C of O?
No,
It won't?
no.
So the motion would be,
This is what I think Sean was trying.
Can you come up to the mic,
okay.
Mr. Pasecki?
I have a motion.
Can I explain?
Counsel?
I think that the First Amendment in front of you does not address these two, 43 and 44.
This second amendment? Are you referring to that?
Yes. It does not address this new issue that is before you today.
I think in a way it does. The problem is that the cart is before the horse. We're here tonight talking about the end result of this deck construction without having fully vetted what's redlined. The red line is not your red line. The red line is, I think, the developer's changes based on the comments you've made. It just hasn't, and it may very well be right. It may very well be 100% accurate. You haven't had a chance to look at it because your office just got it last week.
Excuse me, the second, the review has gone through your office. You did have that, right? So
I reviewed in September. I
right,
reviewed
that was the
something.
second, yep. So that was done.
Yeah, so what came to the packet today did not come from
Right.
our office.
Yeah,
I'm just
gotcha.
gonna say it that
Yep.
way, so I don't
Yeah.
know what is in there. I didn't put it there, so I can't say with certainty to these
that's
folks
fine.
that
Yeah.
what is before them tonight is complete, and I can tell you it certainly has not gone to the planning commission yet. And that is generally, in the case of a PD,
Right.
where it goes, because it gets a recommendation from the PC and then comes here. So what I'm saying tonight is that if they want to deal with this issue of 43 and the deck that encroaches, that's already been built, then approve it, give us some direction on how they want to make sure it gets accounted for in the amendment to the development agreement that is forthcoming, that is getting close. It will be done, I believe, this fall if we keep
Right,
moving
we
ahead.
have it, yeah, have it
And
done.
everyone wants to approve it, but still allows these people to move in because their house has been built, the deck has been built inconsistent with what was issued for a building permit, and we're just trying to deal with that tonight.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion. My motion will read as such. I may need a little jousting along the way. Allow for issuance of C of O through community development with necessary changes to development agreement for lots 43 and 44 through administrative review of the community development director.
I'll support that.
Well, I would include the ability of you, I think it's you and the clerk would sign the agreement.
That's fine.
when it's done.
Allowing the clerk and the township supervisor to sign necessary amendment or improvement. Yes, I guess we call it that.
Can I interject? I'm not clear on what this motion is. I thought what you were looking for is just a motion from this board giving you direction to issue the C of O for lots 43 and 44, subject to it being incorporating into a plan development agreement, which will then, amendment to the plan development agreement, which will then go to the PC and come to the township board.
So yes and no.
what I
44 is
said.
not here yet. It's just 43. 44 is vacant, doesn't have a building on it yet. So it's only the C of O for 43. But I think he just did that in his motion by saying it's not going back to the PC. They've decided to just deal with this amendment here. Give us the ability to make sure administratively we have what we need language-wise.
Correct.
And then once
Clean
we
it up.
tell the supervisor and the clerk that we're good, then the two of them will sign the amendment and that'll just be it.
Correct.
I agree.
Correct. Motion
That-
stands.
Okay.
Looking for support.
I'll support that.
I support from Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Support by Mr. Powell.
I'll retract my support and give it to Mr. Powell.
I'm sorry.
I knew what you were looking for.
I beg your pardon, Mr.
Sorry,
Roman.
Mike.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
So good.
Resolution 24-052, approving solely for the purpose of Section 147 of the Internal Revenue Service Code of 1986, the issuance by the Arizona Industrial Development Authority of not to exceed 355 million senior living revenue bonds, Great Lakes Senior Living Communities LLC, and that specifically reverts to public hearing B. Again, this is for issuance of bonds, it's a requirement of this township. It will not cost you any money as a taxpayer. It's just for the issuance, allowing of the issuance of those bonds in the bond market. Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Roman.
Motion to approve resolution 24-052.
I have a motion to approve 24-052 by Mr. Roman. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support.
Under discussion?
Discussion?
In layman's language, which development is this for in White Lake Township? It's.
As I mentioned earlier.
It's covered by all of these things, and I was obviously not.
I did mention Independence Village.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And 29 other facilities nationally.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So we have motion, we have support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Excuse me, resolution 2405, what'd you put in that, apple cider? Okay, 24-057, approving PY 2025 CDBG applications as we had discussed. I'd like to approve the application. Looking for some more motion and support.
You need a motion?
I need a motion.
I can make a motion to approve resolution 24-057.
Support.
Support, yep, go
I have
ahead.
motion and support by trustee Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. 9D, Resolution 24-056, confirming special assessment role for the Special Assessment District designated Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement 24 through 28. Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-056, confirming the special assessment role for Cooley Lake Weed Control.
I have a motion from Mr. Roman, looking for support. I have support from Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Under discussion?
Discussion?
Just want to make sure that the young lady who came up and gave her opinion, the assessment role had already been approved, and so the SAD does exist. This just strictly confirming the role or the amount that each person, each property is going to be paying. So it's fairly late to eliminate the special assessment district. This is just if anyone had an issue regarding the amount of money that they were being assessed.
Just one clarification. When
Yes.
you first started speaking, you said that the special assessment role has already been approved.
I'm sorry, the special assessment itself,
The
the
district.
district had been approved. And this was for the role. Thank you, Counselor.
Okay. Okay, where were we?
About ready to take a vote.
Yes, I knew. I had a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You got that, Hannah? Okay. Next item, request approval for plan development agreement of Culvers. Fried fish coming to town.
Yay.
Okay. Well, it doesn't get much easier than this. Not only has Culver's been great to work with, all their the owners, their consultants have been great to work with, but it's on a Meyer outlet that already has basically shovel-ready lots. So a lot of the utilities have all been dealt with. And beyond that, this is the first ever development agreement that our township has had our attorney draft. This is the way we're going to move forward now, and it is incredibly efficient. I think Lisa spent a week drafting this instead of us spending literally months having the developer say, well, here's our proposal, and then we go back and forth. I mean, it's 2-3 go-rounds, and it takes months of time, many thousands of dollars, and it's frustrating. And Lisa had suggested to me a number of months ago that we do it this way, thought about it for a while, and realized that she happened to be very right about this. So it's not often, though, she's right, but this one sure was. So, no, all kidding aside, I think that she worked with Culver's attorney, who was super agreeable, as were the Culver's owners. The development agreement that's before you has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. The one thing I will call out, because it's something we spent a little bit of time discussing, you'll see it, is that there's a sidewalk piece, and I want to be clear, there's no sidewalk that they're not putting in that is sort of missing from the original Meyer development. If you know, or if you've been out there, you'll see that all the sidewalk's really in. They're building their site and using the sidewalk that's there. There was some discussion at the Planning Commission level about them extending, and I'm going to bring it up on a map so we can look at this, because I think it's just important to see. Some discussion about taking the existing sidewalk, and it'll make more sense when we can see it, right here, and running it all the way up the hill. There's a grade issue. It's steeper on the west side than it is on the east side, and you can see the sidewalk already, and that's my mouse, crosses Bogey and is picked up on the other side. So the sidewalk does extend all the way up to the Meyer store along Bogey Lake Road. The majority of the Planning Commission, the vast majority, felt this was unnecessary, and you can see there's a sidewalk that runs through here as well. And so in lieu of adding this piece that's missing, that was never required as a part of the Meyer approval, the owner has decided to make a contribution, a public benefit contribution of $10,000 to the Corridor Improvement Authority. This property is located in the Corridor Improvement Authority district, and obviously every project that happens within that district everything that's good that happens in the district benefits all the properties in the district. So the Planning Commission did not find it necessary to try to put a sidewalk in and deal with some of the grade concerns. And we're happy to accept their offer of a $10,000 contribution, and that is memorialized in the development agreement. Other than that, I don't believe there are any exceptions that from the standard requirements of the zoning ordinance. This was, again, a very straightforward project, and the Culver's folks were excellent to work with, and we look forward to them beginning construction soon. If you have any questions for either Lisa or I, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments from the board? Mr. Ruggles? I have a question for you. You sit on the PC. How was it favored?
Actually, I apologize. I wasn't in attendance at that.
Oh,
planning
shame
commission
on
meeting.
you. Okay, one demerit. Okay.
I do have a comment, though.
Yes.
And in regard to the community benefit, I've mentioned it before that I'm not a fan of a dollar amount. So I know that we're not putting a sidewalk in here, so it kind of takes away from making them, actually put in something tangible, but I'd rather see something put in somewhere else than take a dollar from a developer. So just my comment.
Okay, very good. Anyone else at this
So
time?
I had the same concern, and so I spoke to Mr. O'Neill about it before the meeting and got some of my questions answered. He's always good about explaining things, and I asked him, as he normally does, to explain it in depth today, so the residents understand. But I want to comment, I very much am in favor for our attorney starting to be the first person writing the development agreements. That's so much more efficient, and so I'm in favor of that. What would you suggest if we did have discussion on that, Mr. O'Neill, of what could we put it towards that would be tangible?
That contribution? Well, there are projects within the Corridor Improvement Authority, pathway projects within the Corridor Improvement Authority.
To explain it.
Yeah, within the CIA district itself, and it aligns with our CIP, it aligns with the Parks Master Plan. All these documents sort of point to the same deficiencies, the same maybe goals, I'll say, where there are gaps in our pathways or sections of the pathway that are in severe disrepair. So these dollars will go toward, I would envision, making pathway connections that will actually lead more people in the area to Culver's on foot that maybe can't get there so easily or readily now. Because of the condition of the pathway or the absence of a pathway in some sections, so.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Legality. I noticed a lot of that going on in Plymouth Township.
I can't offer legal advice to my client at a public meeting. If you want an attorney-client privileged communication, I'm happy to prepare something for you, but I certainly can't.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the dollar amount, and I get that it's going back in there, but we're not requiring sidewalks in front of there, so we're tying a sewer up, so just kind of been reading a lot about it, just concerned.
I don't have an estimate, but I can tell you based on what I believe the construction costs are currently, I think their contribution's generous and I don't have an issue with it, but to extend that kind of a sidewalk up that hill with potential switchbacking and landing in order to make the ADA grade, I believe it would be more than that. We're not asking them for more than that. We're accepting what they have, but I would venture to guess it could be twice as much as that. Again, the township engineer's not here to weigh in, but, again, there's no issue with their contribution, but it does not cover the true cost of that sidewalk not being extended. And the current ordinance does require there to be a sidewalk. And so it didn't at the time. It's compliant with what Meyer was approved for, but when a new outlot goes in, there's an opportunity for us to say, where are the deficiencies? Where can we make them compliant? So I think that this is a really good situation because the applicant's not having to put something in that's super expensive. We're still getting, a contribution for that public benefit piece of this to where we can put it toward good use for the, pedestrian pathways elsewhere. And I think everyone is in good shape on that.
If I can just comment, I don't think your question was directed at this particular development. You were asking more globally.
No, just in general.
Yeah, and so I think that this is an appropriate discussion for this board to have at another time after I've had an opportunity to prepare the appropriate correspondence for your consideration.
As long as that money sit there, like when we take those sorry.
Okay, any other comments?
I have nothing.
Okay, the owner is here, owner's representative. Are you comfortable moving forward? We are. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you very much. Welcome to the community. When can we expect fish?
Hopefully by early November, we'll start construction.
Great, okay, so fish in March or April?
6 months down the road. if
Okay,
everything goes
all right, sounds good. Just in time for Lent, right? All right,
Mr.
okay.
Supervisor, for the record, they've already, after going to the planning commission, already made the revisions that are needed. The deficiencies in the site plan have already been addressed and they were to our office yesterday.
Ready to go.
When we were closed. So they're really moving ahead with trying to make all the
Okay.
last tweaks, so.
Very good.
Thanks for coming to White Lake.
Yes,
Glad
thank
to
you.
have you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to request approval for the plan development agreement for Culvers. Looking for support.
Or
I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, did that motion include your ability to sign the development
Yes,
agreement?
my ability
Okay.
to sign.
I thought I heard you say that.
As always, yeah. Request to approve agreement for contract with Aquaweed for Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement Board, SAD 25-29. Looking for a motion.
motion to approve the agreement for chemical treatment for Cooley Lake,
25 through 29.
25 through 29.
I have a motion, and I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, let's have it.
Did we skip G?
Nope, that's next.
It's next.
G is next. Approval to
I'm sorry.
intergovernmental agreement between White Lake and Commerce Township Weed Control and Lake Improvement for Cooley Lake, 24-28.
Motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement for weeds in Cooley Lake between White Lake and Commerce.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor? Aye. Next item H, update forward on My White Lake. I have Kathy DeRocher and Kelly Lang. I'm not sure who's going to present.
Yeah, we're gonna team it.
You gonna
Something
team,
lighter.
tag team it?
Oh, the students left. This is something right up their alley.
Yeah,
Darn it.
I finally got it on my phone.
Oh, good.
Not fun.
Took an act of Congress, but I did. Well, my phone had firewall stuff.
Operator error, but, you know.
There we go.
So you should all have handouts at your place, but what we're really pleased to introduce today is a new app called My White Lake, MI White Lake. You'll be able to add this to your cell phones today, right now if you like, while we're talking. You can go into your store, and whether you have an Apple phone or an Android, you can go into that store and add the app. If you don't want to do it that way, you can scan the QR code that's on the poster and also on your handout, and you'll have access to the app. Just accept it, and it'll be downloaded onto your phone. So why we're so excited about this is because it's a way to communicate with our residents. We have various ways of communicating, obviously, through our Facebook page, through our website, but this is a hands-on application. People can put this on their phone. Once they get the app on their phone, they can go directly to the township website. We have a menu on the home page. It'll take you to various sites that we felt would be most accessed most frequently. For example, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So one of the things that we thought this would be helpful with is just having not only ease of access, but being able to get more engagement with our public. So our residents will get real-time notifications. They're called push notifications. So when we have something we want to announce, we can send a push notification, and anybody who has added the app to their phone, they'd only get it if they added the app to their phone, they'll get that announcement.
Like a text.
Yes, so for example, if Mike wanted to send a notification out that it was the last day to pay your taxes before a penalty would be applied, he could contact the supervisor's office and say, please send out this notification. If the clerk's office wanted to let people know that in-person voting started today, that real-time notification could go out. Kelly, you want to maybe go through some
Oh, I
of the
think
other-
you covered it. We were really, I think, from the person that does the Facebook page, we've kind of maxed out on that. We need to appeal to the generation that has their phone 24/7. This is a way for them to connect. We all carry our cell phones around. This is a one-way communication. We can't make comments. The residents can't make comments. But all the information can be accessed through the phone. Our website is not the easiest website to figure out on our phones. It's not very phone friendly. Well, these menus take you right to the section of the website that our residents need to get answers to their question, like garbage. There's a menu for garbage, you hit it, it goes to the garbage section of our website. Elections, you hit elections, it goes to the election page on our website, so they don't have to search. Our goal was to make this as easy as possible for our residents to get information. The push notifications are awesome. I can think of a million things we can push. Police open house, grand opening of the new Culvers, tax payments due, Supervisor Colwell's, what's a good one for you? I do it all the time. A business boost, or tree lighting, or trunk or treat. All kinds of information. There are 3 people that can put notifications on. Myself, Kathy, and Trish, right now. So the notifications do have to go through the supervisor's office, but if the police and fire want to join us, we could expand that. And we're looking for feedback. This is new to us. We did a lot of research since January. This was the app. I'm going to tell you, it was the least expensive app. We do have to get our residents to join the app. Some of the places were twice as much money, but they download the residents' phone numbers for us. We thought we should give our residents the option to join or not to join. So we do have legwork to do to build this. And we're here today to say, spread the word, see what people like. Let's use this as the tool so we can get rid of people looking at White Lake happenings for the answers, because we know it's all wrong.
Misinformation, haven't
You know, so it's just a new thing we're going to try. We signed a year contract. We're going to see if we can make it work. I hope it has your support, and I hope you spread the word and give us suggestions on how you would like us to steer this app.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
If we happen to have an outside activity like Rock at the Barn, the weather, this is horrible, even though people should have common sense not to show up because the Rock in the Barn gets canceled, potentially, as an example. Would we contact one of the 3 people that you mentioned, and then a push alert would come out? Is that what?
Well, hopefully I'd be there because I'll be setting up. But yes,
exactly.
you would just notify us. Yes. We can give you our cell numbers, but I don't know about you, but the most exciting notification I can hardly wait to post is Elizabeth Lake Road is open. You know, those people that have our app are going to know it first. So, yes, right now, only the 3 of us can, and that's just a way to kind of control it. We don't want to bombard the residents with text messages. We want to put really important stuff.
Right, because that has happened in the past when Parks and Rec had an outdoor activity. Common sense wasn't ruling and people showed up. So, and
Trunk or treat will happen even if it rains, but if it lightnings, it won't, and we'll have candy forever.
Lisa had a question.
Yes, Lisa?
Does the app allow you to turn off notifications like all other apps do? So if I don't want to be bombarded with texts about taxes?
Yes, it does. You can actually go in and indicate which
Taxes are late, by
types
the
of
way.
notifications you want to receive. So there's an option for you to select kind of a.
You have to register for the app.
Right.
That's a little extra step, but you can cater it to what you want.
There's a filter.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I had a question. Most of our apps, we just go to the Google App Store or whatever. Is White Lake Township's app going to be on that?
On
On that
there now.
site? Okay.
Yep, it went live today.
Awesome.
The $5,000 went for the licensing in both Apple and Android phones. And like Riva said today, well, there's other White Lake Michigans. Well, they can't have my White Lake. We got that before they did. So it belongs to the township.
Very good. Good work, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Join it. Anyone have trouble?
Okay. I'm on. We'll get there.
We're on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, resolution 24-053 approving the goose nest egg destruction on Cedar Island Lake, 2025 through 2029. Seems like we get this from time to time every year. Somebody's wanting to get on that list. Any questions or comments from the board?
This is just the regular old one that we do every year, correct?
Well, they vary from lake to lake, but
Right,
this
right.
just happens to be the Cedar Island Lake. So looking for a motion?
Yeah, Supervisor Coe, I'd like to make a motion for Resolution 24-053, approving the gooseneck nest egg destruction on Cedar Island Lake.
25 through 29.
25 to 29.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Next item, request to approve Beckett Raider Incorporated proposal for additional service request for rebid Stanley Park Phase 1 development project. Mr. O'Neill.
If you don't mind, I'll talk just briefly about this and J and K both, because they're really going to be working together.
Correct.
We're all used to working with both of these firms, both on Civic Center and in other projects, and have a great deal of familiarity with and confidence in both firms. As you recall from your last meeting, we were unable to reach an agreement on a contract with the previous company that we were working with on Stanley Park. We are under a time constraint with the grant from the state of Michigan, and so obviously time being of the essence, we really wanted to take a look at how we could kind of reapproach this, because we've got to start the process over with bidding. And so there was some discussion internally, and there were proposals requested from both firms, and they're tonight before you in items J and K. Obviously, our office has very high confidence in both firms. If this is the way you want to move forward, then I think that that's great, because again, we love working with these guys, and we've got a history with both of them. And if you've got questions for them specifically about their proposals or the services they will provide throughout this process, both Brian and Aaron are here from Beckett and Rader and McCarthy and Smith. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Powell.
I have two questions. First of all, does the township need to spend funds before the end of the year? Are any of these ARP funds that needed to be used by the end of this year?
These are DNR trust fund grants for development of the park. That $500,000 grant has to be
26.
wrapped up by June of 2026. So our goal is to get this done in 2025 completely.
My next question was, we already bid this project out once, and obviously there were some problems there. What is the reason that we will use, or you're proposing to use Beckett Raider for rebid instead of just going directly to McCarthy Smith to rebid the project, since the construction drawings and all the work has already been done?
So they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think McCarthy and Smith will take the lead on the rebid, but Beckett Raider is the designer. Beckett Raider will have to make changes to some of those documents in order for us to go back out to bid. And so Beckett Raider's proposal isn't to be the lead necessarily, it is to support McCarthy and Smith through that bidding process.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Administrative. Mr. Ruggles.
If McCarthy and Smith was handling the bidding, why would Beckett and Rader need to be at a pre-bid meeting, provide bid period assistance, attend the openings, collaborate in any way with review and vetting, which won't be happening, and really only 2 bullet points maybe on this list here is necessary?
So I can ask Brian to jump in and maybe talk more specifically about this, but I think in general, from where I sit, they're the designer of record through the state, and so they have, McCarthy and Smith isn't going to answer questions about design through some of these pre-bid meetings and bid meetings, so when questions on specifications come up, Aaron's going to look at Brian, because Brian's a designer, and he's a designer of record that the state recognizes as well through this grant process.
But we've got your design, right?
Yes, which needs to be modified for the rebid.
In what way? Dates?
Yes, dates.
it?
We have front-end documents. If McCarthy Smith is going to be bidding it, we'll need to revise our front-end documents to merge with theirs so that we have a complete and cohesive package. And then we'll also work with council to include the township's recommended contract and bond.
I'd prefer you didn't do that, actually. I'd prefer that you weren't involved in any of that, because you've been involved in that, and it went nowhere. So maybe we could take like all these bullet points off and have you do very little, hand over minimum to him. And what would that be, $500? Can you come up with that number one day?
We would need to be involved in those items for a successful project.
I don't think so. Actually, I disagree with you. So.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of requirements that are going to be required by the MDNR. I know that, the change in documents, dates, and the packet as a whole will probably be resubmitted, and the grant is approved upon an acceptable.
But we could leave them out of it.
They have to develop the package. That's the whole thing.
They have to?
Yes, because they are the engineer of record.
Well, look at all this stuff on here. He's gonna attend all these meetings that we don't need him at. He's gonna do all these things we don't need out of him. And they weren't successful the first time. So let's just leave him at home.
So.
Does he have to be there?
I guess I don't want to necessarily revisit the discussion at the last meeting, but I think there are a lot of reasons why we weren't successful with the last go-round of this, and I don't blame any individual or any entity in the process.
Let's
I'm not.
start fresh.
Pardon?
Let's start fresh.
I mean, I think if we're going to approach it this way, my thought would be is that this is going to allow us to check all the boxes. If we don't have everybody on board that's been involved in this process with all the design pieces and with the state, then my concern is that something would not, there'd be a hang-up at some point in time. I mean, he's asking for a $5,000 fee to redo the things that you're talking about on the list, which is, I mean, I'm not walking around with $5,000 in my pocket right now, but it's pretty nominal when you look at the scope of what's being undertaken out there. And I guess if we're kind of taking a step back and then more robustly approaching the management of this project, my thought would be is that we wouldn't want to take, any legs out from under the table. That would be my thought.
All right. I want to get to the meat and potatoes here. If you have questions, we can have some discussion on this, but what are the questions that you might have for Brian? Bless you. Any other questions that you have? Mr. Roman?
Well, I know I had talked with Aaron at McCarthy Smith, and I believe his firm wants Beckett Rader involved. And, for that reason, McCarthy Smith's, they've been really good. One thing I've learned from everything we've been doing for the last year is, as a township, we're not really good at managing construction. But those guys are. And, if they feel that they need Beckett and Rader, I guess I'm gonna respect that request, so.
Okay.
And I understand your frustration.
I understand.
Scott, I get it.
Can we hear from Mr. Phillips? Can we hear from Mr.?
Momentarily. Any other questions? From the
Yeah,
board?
as a Parks and Rec person, we all have faith in you, Brian. So I agree, I'm agreeing with Sean. I don't like the extra 5,000, but I want to keep you in the loop also.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell?
I was wondering, well, it's under the construction manager's fees. I was just wondering if these are hourly guidelines or if this is a lump sum, $142,000 for McCarthy Smith.
Well, that's item number 2. Let's stick with the first item,
I
please.
and I totally understand where Trustee Ruggles is coming from. It's not unlike what we've done at the Township Hall and the Public Safety Building. McCarthy Smith certainly, and this board did not dismiss the architects during the bidding process. They had to be involved in that during the bidding process. And so this is, Beckett Rader are like the architects of the building for the building process for this project.
And we had some rocky times with those architects, let me tell you.
Okay, anything else to add, Brian?
No, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
There's
Okay.
all this breakdown,
All right.
9,000, it's hours and rates.
Oh, I didn't
You have it.
I have it up here on, but
Sometimes it's easier to look at paper,
it always is.
help yourself.
I'm looking for a
So-
motion.
Before we continue, can Mr. Phillips tell us?
Well, that's a separate item,
No,
but I
it's
can.
not a separate
can
item.
allow-
I have a question. If he can.
Very good.
If he can tell us that this
Mr.
bullet-
Phillips, could you come forward to the podium, please?
Thank you.
Good evening.
Are any of these things that are listed on the bullet points, things that are duplicate that McCarthy and Smith would handle?
Zero,
Okay, that was my question.
yeah.
Thank you.
And you believe he plays a pivotal role in this
100%.
process? Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Nope, I'll make the motion to give the approval of
Stay there.
$5,000 for Beckett and Rager for work on Stanley Park.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have a motion from Andrea, support from Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
2 nays. Motion still carries. Next item, K, request to approve Stanley Park Construction Manager and Advisor Service Proposal, McCarthy and Smith. Mr. O'Neill.
I think it's been said. The proposal in front of you is to, as you can see, assist in the completion of the Stanley Park construction project. And any specific question you may have about the services being provided, I would have to direct them to Aaron.
Mr. McCarthy, you seem to have an inane capability of nailing things down pretty tightly, and you have been able to guide us in the right direction and also saved the township some money through the bidding process, of which I think there was, 54 meetings or something, different people we talked to or whatever it was. So, I mean, the level of confidence is there, and we're hoping the objective, I believe, I don't speak necessarily for this board, but I think most of the board feels, though, is it would be in the best interest of this to have someone who can collaborate this particular project and inevitably, hopefully, try to save us a little bit of money along the way. So I noticed that you have your pre-construction fee, you have your reimbursables, and your personnel fee. Combined, they're in the 6% range plus?
Correct, yeah, about 6.4%, correct, which is below
of the
market.
project, which,
That's below market, you said?
If we were to bid this project out, it's well below market.
so it used to be 6%, used to be the name in the game, and I know things have changed over the years, so you're not very far from where things were a few years back. So quite comfortable with this particular proposal and your past performance and the performance that you're doing currently for the township, I think will put us in a good position. So I believe we'll get hopefully some value engineering. Okay. So any other questions or comments from the board?
No, I'd like to make a
Yeah,
motion.
Go ahead. If anything, Aaron, I'm in favor of this, but I'm more disappointed in my board members. You're not willing to give Brian 5,000, but with very few questions, you're willing to give Aaron 142,000. That's a big difference. Like in favor,
We haven't
but
finished yet.
I know, but like it doesn't, I don't understand. Like there's less questions to Aaron. Like I said, no offense, Aaron, but then there was to Brian.
Look at what they've done.
Okay.
Look at what he's done.
Hang on.
Look at the guy. This is Aaron Phillips.
Hang on. Okay, Mr. Powell had,
Yes, I do. We had, this board approved a budget for the Stanley Park project. And McCarthy Smith was not part of that budget. Is this now going to add $142,000 to the Stanley Park budget?
inevitably, there'll be an increase, yes, but what we're hoping through some value in engineering and, things of that nature, that we may be able to minimize this, but I'm more concerned, I think some of the board members are more concerned that by the lack of having someone in this particular construction management position, that the mistakes could exceed the $142,000 mark.
Yeah, we don't know if the other bid included people actually supervising on site, and this does. And the one thing that I've learned from both Elizabeth Lake Road and even our new township site is, I think we overlooked that on both of them, and now we're paying for it. Because we need people out there watching what's being done, when it's being done, is it being done right?
So my question then is going to be, if that's the case, are we going to, as a township, going to increase the budget for the Stanley Park project? Or are we going to evaluate the proposed improvements and reduce the improvements by $142,000 in order to meet the current budget?
Well, I think what we should do is put it out for bid and then take a look and see where we
it comes
stand. We
in.
may be value engineered and maybe at a break even, we might be ahead, or there might be a minimal cost to us. Until that comes forth, the old chicken and the egg, we're not going to know. So I believe that if we let them do their due diligence and go through their process, I believe that will render that information.
All right, and do we have a committee, and I apologize, I don't know this, do we have a committee, Stanley Park Committee, to be able to help evaluate that and make a recommendation to the township board?
Typically, what that does is come into community development, and then the in-house look at it to make sure what can be discussed and information that can be brought forth and ascertained to the board.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Aaron.
Mr. Roman.
Aaron, on the township project, buildings and all, you guys were shockingly accurate at your estimates. Before we even went out to bid, you guys were so close. Is this, are you thinking you can be that close on this type of a project as well? I don't know what you all do as far as other Parks and Rec projects, but.
Sure. So in this particular setup, we're not performing any estimating prior to the bidding phase. So the project documents are complete. So what you're referring to is that pre-construction where we were going through the design for a year. You know, several of you were sitting in those meetings and we were going back and forth on the estimating. So those documents are essentially completed, right? We have to tweak them, and Beck and Rader and their team have to make some modifications with the dates and timelines, but they're essentially complete, right? So the bidding documents. So we're not estimating. Our estimate will be the day of bid.
Okay.
Fortunately or unfortunately.
That's what it is, yep.
Correct. So, but what we can do and what we bring to the table is that bid solicitation during that bidding phase to draw as much, the big funnel, like I always talk about, we want a ton of people looking at it and bidding. So that's what we'll bring to the table and make sure we get good, solid bids, day of bid, and then vet those bids accordingly.
Sean, do you remember how many bids we got on Stanley Park?
7 or 8. There were only 5.
5?
So this will be a little different setup because it's my understanding that there has to be one general contractor involved in the bidding versus like the township hall and the new public safety building. We divided those into bid divisions of work. So a painter, an HVAC, electrician, et cetera. So this is going to be a little different setup with this, but we feel confident we can still get really good numbers.
And just to be clear, the state it's not because they choose to do it that way, or we choose to do it that way, it's because it's a state requirement. And that was, we ran this by the state. They won't allow us to do.
The funding mechanism doesn't allow for multiple prime contractors.
Okay, did you, I know last we chatted, you were hoping to get a little bit of information on the rattlesnake laws.
We did, yeah.
Did you, can you maybe share that with the board?
So I'm going to oversimplify it because that's the way I understood it. Basically, we can conduct construction operations from April 15th to October 15th. I'm getting a head shake yes from Beck and Rader. So that's our criteria with construction. So we can perform those operations. So we've put some preliminary schedules in place that would allow that for the bid design, the bid phase in December, January, award in January, procure materials, and then for a April 15th start and through, again, October 15th execution completion.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, I have another one.
Mr. Powell.
One certain advantage in having McCarthy Smith do this will be obvious in my next question. Do you feel comfortable in eliminating any conflict of access and conflict of staging between the Stanley Park project and the construction of the Township Hall and Public Safety Building project?
We do. It's going to be complex, inherently complex, just with the nature of each operation, but we'll be able to manage that probably much better than another contractor involved, and hey, it's a fight for real estate. So we'll be able to conduct that really well.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. So you'll be out there overseeing the project? Because you'll be out there anyway. So we'll save the money with you out there than hiring, having DLC come out and pay extra $86,000 or whatever we're paying them.
Unless they want to, correct, unless there's some specific things that they want to oversee, like there's a little bit of storm structure that's going in, you probably still want to have them because they're your township engineer to see that pipe in the ground, right? But yeah, it's that collaboration piece that you're going to be saving that managerial oversight to make sure things are installed correctly and when they should be. and how
It's
they
fair to
should.
say we could probably save money on the back end by utilizing your firm.
I think you're gonna have a more successful, comprehensive and complete project because someone's gonna be dedicated watching the project and coordinating those activities versus kind of no oversight.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. Request of approval for Stanley Park Construction Manager Advisor Services Proposal McCarthy and Smith.
In the amount of
6%?
Not to exceed.
I don't have that.
$142,000.
$142,000.
Support.
I have motion, I have support by trustee Smith. Roll call vote.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Motion carries. Request to consider proposals from MD7 American. Thanks, Aaron. MD7 American Tower to adjust financial terms of contract for tower number 305629, more commonly known as Ormond Road. Any questions or comments from the board? I will open the dialogue with a statement that I do not believe it's in the best interest for the township to enter into this type of agreement, especially with the length that they're seeking and seeing that there are changes coming to the industry technologically, and we'll probably see more activity on the towers versus less activity on the towers, which is why there's been such a mad scramble for numerous companies to try to purchase and secure leases. They're not doing it to be the benevolent cell tower company because they're going to take all the risk. They're doing it because there's money to be made, and the up-and-coming technologies are going to have further carriers on these towers for a variety of services, including internet and a variety of other automation and AI things that are coming. It's my experience, with the cell industry, of which I have several years, that the technology is evolving and indeed the changes are coming. And I think the township should just go status quo and say thanks but no thanks, and we'll just see where it takes us. That's my thought process. Any comments from the board?
I don't disagree with you on that. I think going past that date that you spoke about would not be in our best interest.
Any comments?
When is our current contract up for that cell tower?
I don't have that specific information in front of me.
But I certainly agree with your premise, Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah. It's getting near the end, and they know it because it's basically a public record, and that's why they're fishing.
Yeah.
Because they want us to bite. And I have a series of strategies of which I'm more than happy to share, but I would prefer to do that in a different setting.
Yes.
What I didn't like about it was the 50 years, like 2065. I was like, as soon as I saw 50 years, I'm like, I'm gonna be 99 years old.
No, again, you don't want to get into that length of term for a
Exactly.
number of reasons.
Yep.
Because then for co-carrier or other things, it limits your ability.
Yep, absolutely.
For the township to benefit in the future.
Yep.
And it's just, I think it's just a matter of time before we see some co-carriers want to get on that tower.
50 years.
Agree.
So,
That's crazy. That's crazy.
questions, comments, motion?
Can't we just let it, no action?
Yeah, okay.
I would say vote to decline. I'd make a motion to decline.
What is your motion?
I'm not making it, I'd
Oh, I thought you
just
were
make
making a motion.
make it to decline the offer. Decline the proposal.
Okay, motion to decline the proposal.
Second.
Yep. The motion, we have support from Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. M, request to approve an amendment to Administrative Policies and Procedure 4.7, General Business Person, Mr. Roman.
So we got a lot going on here in the township. As you all know, we have broken ground finally, thank goodness, on new facilities. And we are spending an extraordinary amount of money, approximately $47 million, which includes taking on debt of $29 million. The money we're gonna need to come up with and to service our new debt annually is more than we take in on our general fund millage per year. Okay, people, we're looking at around $1.75 million a year for the next 30 years to service this debt. And when the project's complete, we will have depleted approximately $18 million from our improvement revolving fund and our general fund, leaving those fund balances a lot lower than they've ever been. So I asked my board members, isn't this the right time to tighten up our discretionary spending? It's a yes. Discretionary spending is your non-essential spending. I also feel, shouldn't we be questioning expenditures that aren't for essential goods and services? I hope that's a yes. And just because we have budgeted for non-essential spending, does that mean we need to spend all that money? I hope that would be a no. So if there's ever really a right time to tighten our controls over spending, I think now's the time. And what I'm asking today from the board is to put at least two sets of eyes on the expenditures between $5,000 and $10,000 before they're approved. I think we would all agree, two sets of eyes are better than one. So I'm just asking the board to require both the supervisor and either the clerk or the treasurer to approve the bills in that dollar range between $5,000 and $10,000 before we spend that money. And just so that everyone knows, anything over $10,000 has to come in front of the board anyway, unless it's a pass-through item, which is like something that we've already got money from a vendor.
I'd just like to say, as they're going into this gigantic project, the three in-house, and I'm sure the board would agree with this, we wouldn't want one person making big change order decisions, so the big money and the little money, and take the people out of it, people at this board, future boards, future supervisors, clerks, treasurers, and board members. By tightening that up, it doesn't leave one person out there to make that decision, and 9 times out of 10, we're gonna agree with that decision, like a fire truck comes in, or something goes bad, you take a fire truck in and put a rim on it, it's gonna be $5,000, or just under, so it just kind of, I was talking with accounting, and it's just another good checks and balances for all of us, and it doesn't leave one person out just to make that decision alone and be critiqued, so, and then it's better communication with the board moving forward.
So I have a quick comment. I like your idea. My suggestion would probably be to put all three of you. Committees normally work well in odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, so that 2 of you agree to spend the money and not just, or I'm sorry, 3 of you agree to spend it and not just 2.
Well, I think it's more so the fact that I'm going to give you an example. For example, if we have a series of pumps or chlorination equipment as such that comes in, we need to order it, and it's $7,500. It's not a matter of approving it. We need it, so we have to order it. So it was just a matter of 2 sets of eyes looking on it, understand the importance of that particular expenditure, and then signing off on it.
Well, the way that Mr. Roman has presented this has been very nice, but that's not always the crux of what's actually happening. So it's going to be my suggestion that I would prefer that 3 of you decide the expenditures between $5,000 and $10,000.
So it's not a bad idea. The problem is practicality. We're not always all available, and I think that's why we thought that the 2 or 3.
So I talked to Mr. Noble about it, and he suggested, like he could give verbal consent, and then you're just signing checks. So 2 of you could sign the checks, but 3 of you are talking about it. So we don't have to decide it now. I'm just suggesting it. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more discussion on this item from my colleagues, but it's just a suggestion.
Okay, yep.
And as you could see on item, well, C, I sent that to all of the board members. The only thing that got changed was purchases from 5,001 to 10,000 must have prior approval from the township supervisor and/or township clerk or township treasurer. So that could be, a verbal consent followed up. What we do now is when we sign for that purchase order, correct, Supervisor Colwell?
Generally, that would be the case.
And then it's followed up by that. And
The change,
3,
just one
in
paragraph.
the policy, you'll see, it talks about bulk purchases such as grinder pumps and things that Supervisor
I read
Colwell's.
it.
Yeah, okay. So that was the only thing that would be changed, right, so far?
I think so.
And quite frankly, if the in-house officials were not available, certainly one of the 4 trustees would be available to discuss the issue as well. So I certainly am not opposed to that at all, Liz. This whole process is just good business sense. There's no way in the world, even me as the president of my company, that I would write a check for $10,000 without touching base with the vice president and/or the treasurer of the company. That would just be inappropriate. And so this not only protects the township residents, but the township finances, and quite frankly, the individual that may be trying to make that call themselves. It protects each one of us from potential criticism, put it that way.
And if you go under emergency expenditures, you'll see that if neither available consent may be obtained by at least one township board member for a total or 2. That's the original language.
That's higher than 10,000.
Yeah, higher than that.
So what prompted this change? Why, regardless of the money that we'll potentially be sending, why the change? What made this change?
I'm going to step in, and quite frankly, because I was on the board back when this was initially put on, this was always intended to be an emergency funding mechanism. It wasn't meant to be an extraneous or a spending ability of any individual or department. It was meant, if in fact there was an emergency in the township, how do we fund that? And somehow the safeguards were removed from this section, but quite frankly, this proposal puts those safeguards back in and still protects the township and provides for the reason that it was implemented in the first place, and that's to deal with emergency funding. Otherwise, why not come to the board every month and say, we've got these things that we need to purchase?
Correct.
What does the board feel in this?
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I just said
Yeah.
this is kind of an odd time to change, so.
Well, I'm the one that triggered this.
Yep.
Because I see so much money going out, and I got to the point where I just thought it was too much discretionary money going out the door. And so I figured there's never a better time. I mean, as a parent, the time you put the brakes on your spending is when you've got bigger expenditures coming up. So I just thought it was time. And quite honestly, the $10,000 thing always bothered me a little bit. I've been a trustee for 12 years. But to try to put the terms emergencies, you can only spend for emergencies in an ordinance or a policy, then you subject yourself to subjectivity. You just can't do it. What's an emergency to me is not going to be an emergency to someone else, so.
I just thought the timing was odd, to be honest with you.
I guess that's my suggestion of having, to add to 3 of you at it, because then 3 people are looking at it, 3 in-house that are there every day, deciding, does this need to happen now, or does it not need to happen? Because 10,000 over and over adds up. I think that's what you're saying, Mike, is we want to kind of hold on.
And you make a great point in that the in-house, because we're there every day, we have a better awareness of what's going on. I mean, that's normal. We could try the 3. I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. Anthony, what do you think? We could try it. If it doesn't work, if it creates bottlenecks.
Yeah, then it doesn't work, and that's no good either.
Yeah, I'm confident in the 2, how it's set up, but when we could try it. But I don't want to go backwards because I don't think anybody on the boards ever, now or in the past, have intentionally violated a policy or anything like that. They didn't. So I'll make that clear. I don't want to go backwards. We're moving forwards to tighten it, to Treasurer Roman's point of view, is we got to tighten things up and move forward, and that's all we're trying to do is do internal controls to protect the entire township, the board. So the past is a past. I'm not saying anybody violated. I don't think anybody on this board say anybody violated anything because they didn't. It's just now it's time to get fiscally tight and.
So I have a question. If we were to opt for the 3, logistically, I'm just trying to run through the process and how that might happen. Let's just say the clerk knew that there was a $7,500 expense that was needed. He would talk to his in-house colleagues or call on the phone, and 2 of the 3 say, no, it's not needed. Obviously, then it's not done.
That's done.
However, if 2 of the 3 say it is needed and the third person says no, is that an approval to go ahead with that expense then?
Well, not under Liz's idea.
So it's a 3 approval is what it is. And if not, then that must come to the board for approval to make the final decision if it was still requested.
Yeah, and that's where a bottleneck could come up. If it truly was an emergency, but one of us decided, no, I don't really think it's an emergency.
Well, I think there's
Now you
language in this
bottleneck.
for real emergencies that Clerk Noble read. The next line is for emergencies.
For more than 10,000.
For more.
Oh, more
Not
than
between the 5 and the 10 that's being
Gotcha.
proposed.
Okay.
So are these but I guess my thoughts are for the 10,000, are they unbudgeted or budgeted? And I'm all about the 2. I don't want any more than 2
It would be for either, budgeted or
Okay.
unbudgeted.
Right.
I would suggest try it with 2 of the 3, and if the board sees a problem with it, then we'll make it 3.
So I'm fine with that if that's what works well amongst you 3 and you're okay with 2. But how will the board know if it's a problem or not? Because we're never told about those kind of expenditures.
So
But if you want to do 2 and you want to try it, then I'd like some kind of mechanism that the board is aware, at least for a while, of what kind of expenditures are happening. It should be like a quick memo. It can be bulleted to us. And if we want to ask questions, then we can reach out. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a huge deal, but there's no way of us knowing about those 10,000
We can ask the
expenditures.
accounting department what they would suggest, and I don't have a problem with
I had
that.
red marked in here that at the very next board meeting, that expense then is made public to the township board. And
Absolutely, it
Because-
should be,
because-
because that's our one job, is
as you know-
fiduciary responsibility.
as you know, expenses are spent, money's spent, and we don't even know anything about it until there's a problem. The trustees don't. And so it'd be great if we put that in there and says, if in fact an expense over $10,000 for an emergency, the board then is notified at the next meeting.
Yes, that's a great idea.
You want to make a motion, Mr. Powell?
I would just say that I'm fine with 2. I think 2 is appropriate.
And
Well,
I'm not
what if I
fine with
throw a
2, I'm just
motion out
throwing it
there?
out there. Would that work?
I'm
you
fine
know?
with the 2, Mike.
Okay, I'm going to throw a motion out there,
Fine with the 2.
motion to.
Can I just interject one
No,
question?
you can't. Okay, what?
So you do have a provision in here for emergency expenditures, and there's an alternate, right? In the emergency expenditures, it's consistent with what you're saying, consent of the clerk or treasurer. If neither is available, consent must be obtained by at least 1 township board member
so
for a
there-
total of 2. So you might want to make that consistent with the 5 to 10, just throwing that out there.
No, I like just the way it is. So that's for emergencies.
Right, but
Yeah,
if
but
there's
for-
an emergency under 10, between 5 and 10, this provision wouldn't apply.
Yeah.
So what is your suggestion then?
Well, now I'm not going to suggest anything, that tone.
Perfect.
I
I'm gonna
raised
make
an
it the
issue.
same.
Perfect.
You
I'm
deal
gonna-
with it as you
Mr.
see
Roman,
fit.
you have the floor.
I'm
Make
gonna
your
make the
motion.
motion the
No,
way I
but-
wanted to.
Yeah, let's not complicate it.
Yes.
I don't think that's a bad idea to make it the same.
May-
What
may-
is
Call the
her-
question, please.
Yeah.
Okay, So the motion is to amend the administrative policies and procedures 4.7B one C to now read, purchases from $5,001 to $10,000 must have prior approval of township supervisor and the township clerk or township treasurer.
Would-
is in the form
Under,
of a
under
motion?
discussion, would you be willing to put in that motion that the board is notified of those expenses?
And that the board is notified of those expenses.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent.
That is in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Second, roll call vote.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes,
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
and I want to thank the in-house officials for bringing this to our attention.
Okay, moving on. Civic Center update. Well, obviously, there's been a lot of things going on, and we have Mr. Aaron Phillips over here who can give us a first-handed, now that we have him as part of our cast of characters, he can give us a first-handed update.
All right. Well, next time I'll come with a nice presentation. Yeah, we're off to a really good start. We have grading operations underway. We've been really fortunate and blessed with some nice, hot, dry weather up until this past weekend, which serves grading operations really well. We're averaging about 8 grading employees a day out there, several off-road machines, gravel train trucks, bulldozers, dump trucks, et cetera, you name it. So it's a lot of fun to watch. Next coming weeks, we'll see our construction trailer come in. We have some temporary fencing set up, the poles along Elizabeth Lake. Get some the construction screening up there to limit curious folks that might unintentionally or intentionally wander off onto the site. So we want to be cognizant of that. It'll be a very secured site. And then we have have we discussed any ceremonial stuff coming up, or is that?
I'm sorry?
Groundbreaking
Yes.
type ground? Do you want me to go and present that? So a week from
Thursday.
this Thursday, a week from this Thursday at 3:00 p.m. we have a ceremonial groundbreaking ceremony, which will be really exciting. Be able to the site will be able to people will be able to see the site, check it out. Not wander too far off, but they'll be able to see the site and see the operations going on. So we're very pleased with progress so far. The whole point over the next coming weeks and months is to establish our building pads so that construction foundations can start in December. And hopefully everyone cross their fingers for some nice, dry, warm weather in January, February, and March. So we'll see. But very excited. We're very pleased with the progress so far.
Mr. Supervisor, I have a question.
You go ahead, but I also have a comment, I think, of what you're going to talk about.
All
I
right.
thought about something.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I thought about something that
That's
actually.
that's very unique for you. but-
Well, you nor I thought about.
Oh, all right. I just wanted to bring up something that I talked to Aaron about earlier today as well. And I just wanted the board to understand what that's going to look like along Elizabeth Lake Road there. And I'm going to preface this in that I'm always nosy, and site work and building work is my forte, and so therefore I always want to see what's going on. So I'm going to state that. There's proposed to be a security fence, a construction fence, all the way along the frontage there on Elizabeth Lake Road, the west side of the road. A couple entrance drives will have gates on them. And then on the back side of that, that chain link fence is for security. On the back side of that is going to be a wind block, which is also going to be a visual block. So all the way along Elizabeth Lake Road there, our residents are not going to know what's going on until we go up to the second story on a building. And then even driving on Elizabeth Lake Road, you're not going to be able to see. You'll have, if you're walking or something, you'll be able to see up over the top of that. Just wanted to make sure this board gave the administration and/or Aaron guidance. Do we want to leave a couple sections of that screen fencing off maybe at the gate section, maybe at a couple of key areas, so that people that are walking through there can actually witness what's going on. So our residents aren't saying, oh, what's the township doing behind that screen fence? There's something going on there they don't want us to see. And if anything, we want them to see what's going on. This is a standard item for McCarthy Smith. They like to block off. They don't want people to see what's going on because it's most of the time, it's none of people's business. In this case, it is the people's business. It's our site.
Because we're government?
Yeah, because we never hide anything in government, right? So the issue is, how do we feel about that opaque fence going along there? Do we want the whole thing open or just leave some spots that might be available for people that want to see what's going on? I just want to bring that up to the board.
I'm glad you did, just so Mr. Phillip knows, the trustees weren't aware that a fence was going up. So when we saw the post go in, we didn't know that was happening. So it's good for us to talk about it.
Just a point of clarity on something you said. We're not trying to hide anything. So this is a visual deterrent for people that get very interested and, hey, let's bring our dirt bikes out there on Sunday afternoon. Most of our
Or steel.
Correct. Most of our public projects, if not all of them, K-12 schools, institutional projects throughout the state, have a visual barrier of sorts, especially on public highways, to limit those curious people. I still think you're going to be able to see activity happening, but perhaps leaving some gaps in there so people can stop and look and look in would be a good idea. So we'll cater to whatever obviously the township board chooses, but I think it's going to look really nice. It's going to be a kind of a beige fabric with McCarthy and Smith logo and White Lake Township logo all the way down, but certainly up for conversation, so.
Maybe we have one observation section.
Well, Mr. Phelps hasn't alluded to the fact that there's going to be a gated entryway, and those gated entryways do not have fabric.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be able to see through. I have a greater concern, and none of us thought about it, and Mike, you and I should have thought about it, okay? We have a brand-new road.
Yeah.
With islands.
Yeah.
On-street parking.
Yeah.
And a roundabout.
Right.
People need to pay attention to where the hell they're driving and not worrying about what the hell they're looking at.
I thought about that, but I gave our.
That is a bigger concern that I have. And if people want to see what's going on, because we have on-street parking, they can pull over, get out of their car, walk along, peek their little head around the fence there. Maybe Aaron will give them a cup of coffee at the job site trailer, who knows? And they'll be able to see what's happening. I don't think it'll be totally secluded, except that from a distracted driver standpoint and the fact that it's a new roundabout in a new location. I am concerned about that from a public safety standpoint. And I think that particular area should be screened. And I think what he's proposing, because we can always pull a section off, but for some reason we think it's too imposing, okay?
So that's why I thought it was a good idea to do it.
Right.
But have some areas where people could stand and watch.
Well, there will be.
Well, I didn't know that, and you just presented that. So if there are places where people could stand and watch, I think that's okay. And I don't mean just those spots where people use their pocket knives and create a little poke hole through the screen.
I think we ought to let him, I think he understands our concern. I think we ought to let him go about his normal fare.
Then
And
good.
then, for some reason, if the board finds it that we think it's inappropriate or too constraining, that we can pull another panel or two down or whatever we want to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes by pulling a few panels down and letting the public look in, that can be a deterrent to crime and dirt bikes as well. The fact that people are gonna know, hey, someone's looking at me.
Call the police.
Yeah, and so I think you bring up a good point. I'd like to see a couple spots, and if it's gates, that's fine.
Yep, and they come in 50-foot sections of this screening. So if we walk and decide, hey, let's take a few more of these down, we can take them down, no problem. So
Cool.
we can kind of put them up and see how it goes. And
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, you brought up weather.
Yep.
So what kind of weather would really slow this down? Cold weather?
Wet, cold weather.
Yeah?
which is not ideal for the timing of foundations going in.
After the foundations are done, would the weather still have a major impact? Or?
Not as much. Steel can be erected, clean off some stuff, steel can be erected. The big hurdle will be at the Township Hall building, the CLT and the glue lam timber construction on the first, or on the main floor and up. Right now, that's looking like April, May-ish, which, as you know, it can get some wet in there too. So we have to be cognizant of that. But the good part about the structural steel encapsulates most of the building structure itself. That can be worked in the cold weather and wet. So it's getting it out of the ground, the foundations. That'll be the most critical part.
And heavy snow.
So the.
Correct.
That big pile of topsoil, is that all going to be used for restoration on the site?
Some of it is.
Some of it?
So we've tested the pH levels of the soil. We want to use existing soils for the backfill and the landscaping.
Do you know what it was?
The pH, I don't.
No.
I can get the testing report, so.
That's all right.
I can email them to you, it's no
I've
problem.
got them at home.
Okay, yeah, you probably are well familiar with that field, so. So some of the topsoil is going to be salvaged there, stockpiled for the backfill and for the landscaping itself. The balance of it that's left over, that was a value engineering item that was done during bidding. So some of that's going to be spread over the vacant land at the end of the final grading.
Okay.
So there'll be a pile sitting out there for a while, though, when you drive by. There's a ski hill, so.
Okay.
That was a coffee, thank you.
And how we doing on the, was it the most western roadway had to be redesigned a little bit because of the organics, I think?
Yes, so we're actually waiting on and perhaps Brian, he's still here, he can
Brian,
weigh
if
in,
you
but
give us an update.
we're waiting on the final SCSE permit, the soil erosion sedimentation control permit, to make sure there's zero other comments that the county has before we implement that bulletin design change. We've given everyone a heads up, contractor-wise, that that's coming, but it hasn't slowed down operations.
Good.
It's coming up for seconds.
And just to add to that, while we're waiting for that final soil erosion sedimentation control permit to be issued, our office has been working in the background to begin redesign of that roadway, moving it north to avoid some of those organics so that we can shorten the duration of reissuance of drawings to McCarthy Smith.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. You're doing a great job. Appreciate everything, gentlemen. I know it's a lot of work. I had a fellow supervisor-elect out there, and he was duly impressed. And he said White Lake should be very, very proud of what we are up to and what's taking shape. And he liked our new road. So moving in the right direction. Thank you, gentlemen. As far as the road goes, the revised finish date that I have is November 15th. Okay? And if anybody was out there yesterday, you'll see the curb is now complete around the library. And if the weather holds out, they may start paving either the end of this week or most likely beginning of next week to get the lower base course in. And after that, they'll be able to do the final top coat and striping, and the road will be open probably for general traffic. I'm hoping to get them to start to set some poles so before we get traffic in there, which would be good. A lot of the restoration has already started. The mats are down. During the dry spell, I had the fire department go out there with a tanker and water it down a little bit because there's no irrigation in place right now to help give it a little boost. And if we have some dry spots here in the next week or two, we'll probably go out there and do the same thing again, just to kind of help it take foot, so to speak, and move forward. Signage is coming shortly. I'm not sure what the installation date is there, around all the roundabout and such. And job site trailer will be there
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday. Okay, so we're heading in the right direction. Mr. Roman, anything to add? Mr. Powell?
I do not. Oh, I just had a question. How are the services going to be brought to the trailer? Electric, water, sewer?
DTE's going to provide a temporary pole that crosses the road overhead. They're going to keep it really tall, so it won't impact any traffic. And then we are no water at the trailer. We'll have a tank for a restroom, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Good thing the library loves you.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move, at this point, I'd like to move on to trustee comments. Andrea?
Thank you, hang on. Just want to make everyone aware that, but we all know Trunk or Treat is a Saturday. 6 to 8, if I remember correctly. My Daughters of American Revolution were scheduled to tombstone clean at White Lake Cemetery. It got canceled due to the crazy rainy, cold weather we have, so we scheduled for this Sunday. If anyone wants to come out and see history, in a sense, born again and read, being able to read and see the history of the White Lake. And as we know, today is Mike Powell's last meeting, so I have a few comments for you.
Actually, I have one more.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm prepped for tonight, so I'm
All right.
Just push him on.
Save it
here.
for the last one.
I want to hear it.
Okay, no, I was thinking it was tonight, so I'm doing it
Thank you.
tonight. I have enjoyed
Feel
sitting
bullied.
next to you, because I have a prop. That's why I'm doing it tonight, so I don't care, Mike. You'll just get less next time.
Oh, all right.
I have enjoyed sitting next to you. I think most of my time as a trustee, I think I've sat next to you. I have enjoyed sharing blueprints with you at the meetings. I thank you for sharing your institutional and professional knowledge with me. And the one thing that I will miss the most about you is your ability to sniff out sugar and desserts. And of course, great cookies.
Amen.
And where to find them at every activity that we go to. Now I have to find a new person at MTA to give them to, that's where you usually take my dessert. However, I am disappointed in you tonight, because this is my prop. This is why I'm doing it tonight.
Oh.
You didn't sniff out the cookies that I brought you.
Oh, look at that. Oh.
Those are not to be shared by anyone
What a
but
blessing.
yourself.
Thank you so.
You're welcome.
And the bottom line is my wife doesn't see these either.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Although hopefully she's not watching.
No, but we'll tell her to tune in tomorrow.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Yeah, no, they're all homemade
God bless.
by me. You're welcome.
Mr. Powell, we'll go right into you and then into Mr. Roman.
Well, I'll give my final goodbyes next month, and so I have, look forward to one more month. But I do have a request of this board and my fellow residents here in White Lake Township. Before our next board meeting, there's going to be a very small little election that takes place on November 5th. And I am very frustrated as an American that we can listen to rhetoric instead of look at past deeds and plans and actual procedures that are put in place. And I really ask my residents, my fellow residents, to vote on the research you do, on the actual results of candidates. Each of them have a history. Actually research the actual results and not just listen to the rhetoric. It's amazing to me how easily we're fooled by rhetoric when, quite frankly, it's empty and it is not backed up by history. We're excellent in rewriting history, but if we don't learn from history, then we're doomed to repeat it. And I'm hoping and praying that we are not doomed to repeat the history of the last 4 years, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Roman.
As always, I want to thank the public for coming. Love to have you here. Those watching live stream, thanks for joining. And I want to give our board just a quickie update on our sewer committee. We've got a contract rewritten that we're proposing to Commerce Township. As you know, our sewer contract expires. I think it's got about another year maybe. And I wanted to give special thanks to Mike Powell. I don't think anyone knows how much time Mr. Powell puts in and plays such an essential role in that process, Mike, so thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I had, Rick.
Okay, Mr. Ruggles.
Thank you. Andrea, I thought the same thing about Mike, and I think the first 2 terms we did together, we got sworn in the November meeting, And then the meeting just went on, but the dates have changed, so.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
So it's different now. I had to check with the clerk's office, but I just about did the same thing.
thank you.
But, yeah, so trunk or treat, Andrea mentioned it, 6 to 8 PM on the 19th. I'll be supplying the donuts and the cider. So if anybody's interested in some good donuts and some good cider, no, they're not all free, just some of them. So I'm looking forward to that. And we've got a planning commission meeting on Thursday. And happy Halloween, and make sure you get out and vote on the 5th.
Very good. Trustee Smith?
Thank you. I'll be short. The library is having a great fall program. They had decorated pumpkins, and their programming is going very well. But they are working on a really neat display that will be coming soon in the lobby vestibule area for those who have donated to the library and who wish to donate to the library in the future. So I'm looking forward to that. We all mentioned trunk or treat. That's a great event, and I think most of us will be there, and looking forward to that. I'm wearing pink this evening to honor breast cancer awareness, and I give my same PSA every October to please do self-exams for men, women, and pets. It does affect everybody. I know, unfortunately, I think all of us know somebody that has been affected by breast cancer or is battling breast cancer. So don't forget the men and surprisingly, your pets. I recently attended the State of the Lakes event with Supervisor Colwell and Clerk Noble and Chief Keller, and I was so proud of White Lake. We had an opportunity to share what was going on in White Lake, and we're doing a great job. Our surrounding communities are as well, but it was just really a moment for White Lake to shine. And then, of course, I want to mention the November election to get out and vote. It's very important. This board is on it. We don't have anyone that's opposed, but don't forget to vote for us. And so I just want to mention that. So thank you so much.
Very good. Leaves you.
All right. Again, I just want to thank all my staff working very hard and diligently on the election, and all the people signing up to help. And I too would like to, since we're talking about cancer, I'm unfortunate to lose a good friend and a good person that our board member all know recently, who's one of my election workers. And I'd just like to take a moment of silence for the people that are suffering from cancer, all types currently, and the ones that have passed. We can do that for just a moment. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, well, I'd like to say good evening to the earlies, wherever you are. Okay, and to those who are here in the crowd tonight, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate it. And as always, the board tries to make the right decisions and move forward. But if you're not making decisions, you're not moving forward. So you need to try to understand that from our perspective, that we do have the best interest of the township at heart. So with that, I say good night. God bless. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion support. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.